Ooh, yeah. Where's my liquid death? That's where it went. There we are. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. We are here. We are having a good time. At least I hope we are. I'm trying to be live a little bit more often. And I think we have ourselves a really good day ahead of us. So we have ourselves a really fun, interesting guest. How's y'all doing? How's y'all feeling? There's the liquid death I referenced not too long ago. How's everyone feeling? We have ourselves a real fun guest today. I think this is going to be probably one of the coolest people we've had on in a while. We have someone that you've seen throughout all of the online spaces, with a really cool project. As you can see, it's Schu from Schu Stats. Apparently, they have a master's in computer science, not beating the Smash Brothers and computer science allegations. They all continue. He's been doing a lot of this stuff for a very I know. Whoa, indeed. He's been doing a bunch of like algo and ranking stuff for it looks like quite a few years at this point. But he's been in the scene for longer. He's been doing it for like the past 3 years, but he's been in the scene for about the last 5, which honestly is a real good starting point. Honestly, if I say so myself. A lot of people got his has seen his notoriety when his first like post blew up out of crazy based on the results based tier list and the top 100 of every character, which I'm sure you've all seen for Ultimate. It's a pretty cool, crazy thing that people love seeing. SchuStats is the name of the game, and that's probably been one of his bigger projects that he's worked on and that you know him for. But he's also been worked on Smash Base and has been on the PR council for both SoCal and San Diego, which is pretty awesome. And you can watch his YouTube videos, which is also linked somewhere in here. I know, fancy, super fancy. Ain't that something? Fancy stuff. But anyway, enough about like very great resume, IMO. And let's see if I know he's pretty readily available, so let's see if we can get him in right away. Let's see it. Let's get him in here. All right, we are going to give him a super cool video call. Let's see if he is ready. Let's make sure we're exactly how we're supposed to. Hey, there you are. All right, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I'm sure the chat can hear you.
Absolutely.
Chat, can we hear our guest? Chat, can we hear our guest? I'm sure we can. Yeah, all right. Let's move over to our cool little fancy our fancy screen over here where we can actually talk to you. Oh, it's
Yeah,
weird.
I've
I'm a little bit mirrored. I'm on this side. I'm normally on the other side, but based on this, whatever. We're gonna. It's gonna look like I'm looking off screen, even though I'm looking directly at you on
okay.
on this end. So it's gonna look a little kind of a little funny. How's it going, man?
Good, I'm doing great. I have the stream pulled up on the side so I can see that it's all looking good. But yeah, thanks for organizing this.
Yeah, man. I think I had reached out. I want to say it was like 3 months ago at this point, 2 months ago, something like
Mhm.
that. The first time around, and then we're like, oh, finally, we have the ability to actually have this whole conversation.
Mhm.
You look like you're in like that white void that John Oliver was during all of the lockdown for last week tonight.
Yeah, I'm just kind of in my place. I have my desk set up so that the wall is behind me. Um,
Okay. You gotta
for I don't know, just because it's like a nicer background than I guess my room.
gotta start putting like random hanging stuff. You know, the IKEA pegboard comes in real handy. You can throw all kinds of nonsense up there, and you can look like you have a
Yeah.
whole shit. Otherwise, like I said, you look like you're in the void of last week tonight when John Oliver during that pandemic season.
I know it's not very decorated in here. Maybe I should decorate it more.
It's amazing what a bucket of paint will do. How you been, man? How are things treating you at the moment?
Good. It's been generally pretty good, a little busy, but
Hmm.
yeah. I've got some exciting news coming out next month that
Ooh.
I can't talk about yet, but you'll definitely see.
Oh.
So that's exciting. Stay tuned for that.
Ooh, see, we already got teases for the next big thing coming already. So I gave you a quick little intro, man. I I I kind of wanted to start and with kind of like the very beginning. It's usually where we start these things. The very beginning
Mhm.
is usually a really good place to start. Um, when I had asked like a little bit about like a quick little intro stuff for how we can like introduce you to the world, a lot of people already know who you are again from the Schu Stats post, the post for the top 100 of every character, the top 100 of a PR or whatever, and you that's where a lot of people know you from. So what I want to talk about is kind of like your journey to eventually what led you to here. And it seems in the grand scheme of things like not that long of a journey considering it's only been like 5-ish years from what you had me put out there. But a lot happens in 5 years. A lot happens then. Apparently, you're already working on your master's in comp sci, which apparently, if you heard earlier, not defeating the allegations of smashers and computer science degrees.
Yeah, actually,
Not defeating that allegation.
especially DDD players. If you don't know, I play DDD.
Yeah, yeah,
I swear all the DDDs I meet, more than half of them are computer science majors, which is kind of funny.
yeah. Oh my god, that's pretty hilarious. I kind of wanted to start from like the very beginning, from the start of your competitive journey to kind of essentially the end of your competitive journey, because that's kind of where Shoe Stats kind of takes off, based on kind of what you had said. But I kind of want to
Yeah.
go from that very beginning. So
Yeah.
Smash
So
Brothers Ultimate, I guess, is the first. Or what was the first? And how did we get to the point where we start this journey?
yeah, so like most people, I played Smash as a kid, for fun with friends.
Hmm.
And then I kind of um I guess moved on from it. I didn't really think about it for long time. And then in 2019, or I guess at the very end of 2018, um, Smash Ultimate came out,
Hmm.
um, and I kind of got hooked on it. Um, I was obviously really bad at first. I would just like try and beat like higher and higher level CPUs. Um,
Hmm.
but throughout 2019, I got really hooked on it. And then I remember what really um, made me fall in love with like tournaments was it was Genesis 7 Grand Finals. Um,
Mm.
I remember staying up and watching that and watching Mars like absolutely
Mm.
destroy MKLeo, who I thought was like the greatest player ever.
Yeah.
Um, he like 3-0'd him. And so after that, after I saw that, I started going to tournaments. Um, and so it was the very beginning of 2020. And so I went to tournaments for a
Mm.
few weeks, or actually like two
Yeah.
months, and then lockdown happened.
Hmm.
Um, so you know how, everyone kind of got into something during lockdown since they have like all this time to themselves.
Hmm.
For me, that was playing Smash on Wi-Fi, playing Wi-Fi tournaments.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, and so I played a bunch of Wi-Fi tournaments. Uh, got pretty good, I'd say decent.
More
And
than just a
then
two-tour.
yeah, like I don't know, consistently get top 8 at my locals when those started coming back.
Hmm.
Um, but nothing crazy. I just kind of enjoyed the game. And then near like the second half of 2021, when offline tournaments were starting to come back more, I uh, I was really interested in like who the best players were
Hmm.
because like obviously in 2019 we had the PGRU,
Hmm.
um, and you could say like, oh, Zachary is the seventh best player in the world or something like that. But in 2021, we didn't really have that because we had the PGR contenders list, but that was like it was like putting players in different tiers,
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
um, and so I was kind of curious as to like who the best players are. So I kind of started fiddling around with like um, with ranking systems. And I remember my first one, it was terrible. It was like um it was strictly based on placements, which already off the bat is
Kind of flawed.
awful. Yeah, very flawed.
As someone who doesn't
Um
know anything about it, that's kind of flawed.
yeah, well, because there's a lot of things that can influence placements outside of like um how well someone performs. Like I remember I forgot what tournament it was, but there was some example of someone who got 65th and lost to like the first and second place
Yep.
because one of them like went into losers and just had like a crazy losers run.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was like a terrible ranking system. But then and then I started like looking at how Elo performed, which is like what the ranking system they use for chess.
Hmm.
Um, and it did better. It was like okay, and there's actually uh, an article from it was probably like 10 years ago at this point of someone who tried doing Elo on Melee,
Yeah.
um, specifically like Melee, like the Northeast, um, like New England,
Okay.
um, running Elo on that. And they had like a huge article. Actually, you know what? Now I'm curious. I'm gonna see if I can find it.
If you find it, make sure
Um,
you link it, and we'll put it in the description for after the fact for the VOD. Then that way I can show the people.
um, if I can't find it in the next 10 seconds, uh, I'll see if I can find it later.
Yeah, certainly, certainly.
Um, yeah, but anyway, there's like an article about that I read about how and why Elo is flawed when it comes to Smash. Um, and like I'll give you an example. Is one of the reasons is when you play a Smash tournament, it's double elimination,
Hmm.
which means uh, everyone plays a different number of sets. And even like at one point in the bracket, in losers bracket, two players could have played two different sets to get two different amounts of sets to get there.
Yep.
Because like you could have someone who went all the way through winners and then dipped into losers, or someone who went into losers round one and then made the run all the way back to that
Yep.
place. And so that kind of messes up elo. And like in chess, for example, which is like the biggest place where it's used, is everyone plays the same number of games per tournament in chess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that's an example of one of the flaws. And so I kind of started looking at these flaws and thinking about how they could be fixed. And I started basically just like at first kind of just messing around with what an algorithm would look like to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then at the beginning of 2022, I want to say it was like March, um, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, AC.
Mm.
Um, and you're from SoCal, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So
Generally
you,
from.
so you definitely you definitely know who AC is.
Yeah. Very
Um,
familiar.
yeah,
Seen the tag everywhere. If you're from SoCal, what just one
yeah,
SoCal Ultimate is just one of those people or names that you have that you just end up having to know.
yeah. He's a brawl vet. He's been in the scene for like 15 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we became friends, and I had a conversation about with him. He's also a computer science major,
Of
and
course.
he was yeah, right. And he wanted to build a project where you can like as a TO seed tournaments automatically.
Mm.
Um, and we were talking about that, and I was like, "Oh, I've been messing around with ranking algorithms. How about we like do the project together?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we started working on it together. And I over the next few years, I made improvements on my algorithm. And so basically, once I started working on Smashbase, which is the name of the project, I kind of honed in
Which
on
I'll link
making
down
an
below
alg.
later on. I'll link that down
Oh,
below.
thank you. I kind of honed in on making an algorithm that measures how good someone is at the current point in time,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big shift from the ranking algorithms that have existed,
Mm-hmm.
because or rankings in general, because from um, from regional rankings all the way to global rankings, it's always been who has had the best season, right? And this
Certainly.
is who is the best right now, as in like if someone were to play in a tournament, how good or how well are we do we expect them to perform?
Mm-hmm.
Um, which takes into account not just this season but past seasons, and like if they didn't go to a lot of
Lifetime,
tournaments
essentially,
last
right?
season, lifetime, but like more uh like weighted towards more towards like recent results.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also like weird things like, well, what if someone doesn't have any recent results and they're coming back from like a hiatus? um but basically over the next few like year or two, I made improvements to the algorithm looking at these different edge cases and uh weird scenarios, and trying to make an algorithm that feeds everyone well, and also not just top players, but also mid-level players and high-level players and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and basically, then in 2023, um, I started using the algorithm for a whole bunch of other stat stuff, including the results-based tier list and the character rankings, and I've basically continued to do that to this day, and that's where we are now.
Yeah, I knew it was really extensive, and as someone who is fairly on the outside of understanding it, like if someone tells me, yeah, based on this ranking, they're number three. Sure, I guess. I don't know the magic wizardry behind it, the mathematical wizardry behind it all. So I'm just going to assume it's relatively flawless. Otherwise, we wouldn't be using it. But I'm sure there's a lot of like trials and tribulations up until like getting to what seemed like, okay, I think this is an acceptable version of how I want a this type of product to exist out there. And considering from when you started to where it is now, I feel like that's a relatively short period of time for two people to be kind of working on it and kind of have a list that a lot of people do point to and see regularly for that kind of stuff. So that's actually super impressive. You know, you have these major like devs that like work on stuff for years and years at a time, and they pull out a garbage product, and for a relatively short period of time, you're able to put out something that a lot of people do point to fairly regularly and often look to see. I know just was it last week you already put out the updated top 100 for each like different regions already. So the fact that it's relative, it seems so, I want to say super honed in, but honed in enough where you can put out one of these per month and it looks like there's a pretty high level of consistency with it. At least, and again, this is from someone who has no idea, man. I last time I took a math class, it was like my 10th grade year, and that has been like 14 years ago or something like that. It's been a long time for me. So I think that's actually super impressive. Like where did you pull where did you get pulled in onto this, like this kind of thing? Because for me, I would think it's cool now, but if it was me like 10, 15 years ago, I wouldn't have thought to like try to make up an algorithm to try to, you know, figure out rankings or anything. Like, what was like your true like inspiration? Was this something that you were kind of like had an affinity for in some way before, prior to Smash, or was it kind of like as you got into it because of computer science, because of the overall, it kind of melded together? Or was it just like, fuck it, I'm gonna try it on my own?
Well, I mean, I've always been interested in math and computer science. Like, I don't know, it's just always been something that's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's kind of the same thing with rankings. Is um, I just it just always seemed uh, interesting to see, to like evaluate, like, okay, how good are these results? Because like just seeing a bunch of results like is kind of I don't know, not almost like amorphous. Like it's uh and so it's cool to kind of see like turn those results into like one number,
Mm-hmm.
um and and just kind of benchmark how good someone is at a current point, at a certain point in time. um and it um I don't know, it just always seemed interesting to kind of use that to like put context to what's going on in the Smash scene.
Mm-hmm.
So like for example, you could say like oh, this person, like, X player beat Y player, but Y player is like has 5 times as much rating as X player.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of like makes things more interesting by um prescribing like a um or I don't know if prescribing is the right word, but just kind of showing like the difference in skill level, or at least the difference in previous results, and
Mm-hmm.
saying like this upset is really big.
Yeah.
So that always was interesting to me. And then um, another thing that was interesting to me is I had heard a lot that um, like algorithms are bad at ranking players, and
Yeah.
that like kind of sounded suspicious to me. And because what they meant is Elo is bad at ranking players, which
Mm-hmm.
is true. Uh, and so I, um, and so this kind of like curiosity for like, okay, but why is Elo bad? Or, basically why do people think algorithms are bad at ranking players? Kind of like basically got me digging and going down this rabbit hole. And Um, I guess it's basically like a rabbit hole that I've been going down for a while, of like why are uh, rankings better? Like, wh- why are different ranking systems or ranking algorithms uh, good at ranking players, and what makes them better than other ranking algorithms? Um, and trying to like fix those issues and make them better. Um, and something that's kept me going is like uh, on like previous iterations of my algorithm, people would uh, give feedback, and sometimes it would be constructive, sometimes it wouldn't be. And it's kind of interesting to parse like what feedback is actual feedback and what feedback is someone being salty that they're not as good as they think they are.
It's like, no, my coach
um,
deserves at least this many.
yeah, like someone kind of like what feedback is actual feedback that I can use to improve the algorithm, and what feedback is just like someone having an ego. Or having an
True.
ego for their or having an ego for their region.
Yeah, exactly,
Um,
exactly.
like my favorite thing to do is like someone will ask, "How do I get my rating to go up?" Or like, uh, "Why isn't my rating higher?" And it's like, well, uh, my best advice for getting your rating to go up is to win more. Uh,
I don't know. Seems kind
generally,
of
that's
obvious to
better.
me. Yeah, you win more, your number goes up. I don't know.
Yeah, but then there's other feedback that that is actually like good feedback that I've taken and then implemented into the algorithm, in that like I've found some like a way to improve the algorithm. Like I'll give an example is like um, let's say someone has not that much data, like they've been to a few tournaments and they've done really well. Uh, the algorithm, like an old version of the algorithm, would just measure their average performance.
Hmm.
So, like, if they won a few locals without dropping a set, that in previous versions of the algorithm, that would put their rating super high because, they beat 99% of their opponents, right?
Hmm.
They have like a ridiculous win rate. And so I, implemented a change where um, it takes into account like how likely that actually is. Like, how likely is it that someone comes out of nowhere and is top 100 in the world? Like, you know,
Not
and
really.
yeah,
Like,
and so it like,
there's that one video that Walt had turned on for Walt had put out about the Little Max. I don't know if you had a chance to see
Mhm.
it, right?
Yeah, I did. I did watch the first few minutes of that video. I'm actually gonna finish it later.
A
Um,
spoiler, they bring out the best result, and it's actually technically a local. The best result a Little Mac has gotten is it was a local, but
mhm.
because of who was there in
Yeah,
Japan, it like if adjusted for rankings criteria, it would have been a B tier.
yeah, yeah.
Like that makes
It's like a
that's a
super stack local.
yeah, exactly. I think it had like Ken and Shoe Tone at it, so it's
Hmm.
like you
I
have
remember that.
like a top 10 player and like a top 15 player in attendance with like some other like top 50 players or whatever in alt at the same local. If anyone wins that, that's going to be a major thing to consider, but it just doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily qualify for rankings. That doesn't mean he's going to be considered better than Akala, but
yeah,
it is something to consider, at least a little bit, right?
yeah. It's funny. Actually, that's another thing I implemented earlier this year is like taking into account the Lumi rank tier.
Hmm.
Um, so like for the top players, the algorithm really only cares about um, events that have like a Lumi ranked tier. So like for that tournament, like for Shuton and Ken, that tournament didn't matter that much um, because it didn't have a Lumi ranked tier.
Hmm.
Um, and but for Tada Katori, which is the
Yep.
player you're talking about, uh, it's funny because it like he's actually a really good player, so it doesn't
Hmm.
matter that much for him, but it matters more than for Ken and Shuton because he's much lower.
Yeah.
Um, but it actually it doesn't matter as much for him because he is like has a super high rating. But like if it was some random little Mac, actually Japan has a lot of
Random
what
little
are
Max
called
apparently.
yeah, actually no they have they have a lot of what are called depth players, which are
Mm,
players that are like bad, like one tours or two tours, who will just like make the craziest upsets, especially at like locals, and sometimes ranked events too. And for them, the locals count a lot more because they're not going to majors or often or
hmm.
getting that many sets at majors. Like, you can't base someone's rating off of uh their one like let's say someone lives in SoCal, right? The only
Hmm.
major they probably go to is when they trek all the way up to Genesis,
Hmm.
right? Um like you can't base their whole rating just off them going 2-2 at Genesis.
Hmm. True.
Um
True.
but for someone like like MK Leo, who goes to a lot more major tournaments and whose locals don't really matter. Um, you wanna just base it off of the ranked events.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly. Certainly. And I remember a long time ago, back when PG was around, Swar had mentioned something to the effect of like when they were talking about the PGRU rankings that like sometimes like depending on what event is happening, the type of the event almost matters less than what you actually think it does because like if it's like a 16-person local, I mean, no one's really going to like look at it very much. But if your 16-person local ends up looking like, you know, top 10 ranking, like half the top 10 ranking is there and, top 40 contenders are at that local and you go 2-2 there, that's going to carry a lot more weight than your average 2-2, at like
Yeah.
tip the scales or something. Which also
Yeah.
shout out to Dreamcatcher Gaming. I didn't mean for them to catch stray on that one. And Tip the Scales is a great local. Go to there and out in Ventura in the 805. Check that out every Thursday.
And Matt is the GOAT. I think he doesn't he run it or
I think it's Bob the
that girl?
Dustclops.
Oh,
I think
Bob the Dustclops is also a cool dude too.
I want to say he,
Um,
he either runs it or he's the forward face of that particular one because every time I see anything about Tip the Scales, he's the one that's responding to it the most.
yeah,
So
yeah. But I know Matt, aka Fat Girls, goes to that one a lot. He's a cool
yeah.
dude. Anyway, off topic.
No, don't worry about it, man. We don't have to stay on topic. For all you know, we'll end up telling you the story about how I think I accidentally mentally scarred my fiance, even though she didn't know who I was because I was carrying on a goat head. But that's a conversation for later.
That's a wild story.
And the funny thing is, we actually came to this conclusion yesterday. Actually, after I had there's that one local with an NYC where Hook Gang God, Sonic Fox, Lord Knight, and the Kill Sage. Jesus Christ, that is a crazy local. Yeah, so I was at a punk show and I did something weird, and then she remembered being at a show very, very early in her time going to backyard concerts and stuff, and she remembered a guy doing a weird thing, and I think we connected the dots that was the same night. I could tell the full
That's
context
funny.
later on. But yeah, those like a local like that, Hook Gang God, Sonic Fox, Lord Knight, the Kill Sage. If that's your local,
Yeah.
that's gonna mean a lot in the grand scheme of things. Not to say like all the other locals don't matter, but like I'm sure that that's something that like you have to think about a little bit more. I'm sure, like, also back in the day, like during the Smash 4 era, where at least in SoCal, we had like a much higher pool that was concentrated for top 50, top 100 compared to now, where it's a lot of those people have either moved on, retired, moved to locations, or whatever. It would have been kind of hard to kind of think about, right? Like you think of like the East Coast, you have giant pockets where the talent is very, very concentrated, right? Like I want to say the majority of NA's, or not NA, but the majority of the US's top talent is kind of relegated out of the East Coast. Like
Yeah, like that Northeast, like light tweak. Um, yeah.
DeBuzz, Mars, all of them,
Buzz,
all
Mars.
of them are based out of the East Coast, right? Out
Mhm.
here, we a lot of SoCal talent. We have Chase, we have Monty, and Larry Lur whenever he decides to show up. You know what I mean? Larry Lur. Why does Larry Lur always have to catch these strays, man? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
But
he's just a chill guy.
yeah, it's just chill, dude. Did you ever see that Nardwar style interview that happened that took place during Wave Dash last year? The
No,
guy,
who?
the guy.
What was this? Or remind me.
Oh God, this was Wave Dash last year. Not last year. No. When was Wave Dash last?
Was it in San Diego or LA?
No, Wave. That one was in Anaheim.
Okay,
So,
so like La Mirada.
yeah. It was
Yeah,
at
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
where
It was
MSM
last year.
zeros. Yeah, when MSM
Yeah,
zero was happening.
yeah.
I forgot who he is. Oh God, I feel so bad. He literally dressed up like Larry Lur for the interview with him, and he was pulling like the deep cuts. Like, hey, you went by this tag this tournament, and it was like an old brawl tournament. And he goes, "How do you know that?" He was so dumbfounded by the fact that happened. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But like having to account for those kinds of things, like those types of like regions or locals, like it was that kind of like difficult to like tweak just right so that it makes sense and doesn't make certain regions look way too top heavy, even though like if you look at just general rankings, it is top heavy towards those areas.
Yeah, so like yeah, I basically had to make sure that like um regions weren't getting like, okay, so like if a player only went to locals in their region, obviously you can only base how good they are on um playing against their region. Um but I didn't want players to have like inflated values for like destroying their region when they couldn't go outside,
Mm-hmm.
or like when they didn't prove themselves outside their region.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so like one of the things I implemented was like it looks at um, like how do I explain this? Um, when it looks at how much data you have, it has diminishing returns on playing the same player. So
Mm-hmm.
like if you let's say you two players play each other um let's say 10 times. That 11th time will have if they play each other another time, an 11th time, their the weight of that set history will not increase as much as if they are playing for the first time. So like so the effect that that has is that uh, if you um, if you only go to like one local and you play the same 5 people over and over again, you're not going to have that much data as someone who goes to a whole bunch of different locals or goes to majors or regional events and they're playing
Mm-hmm.
all these different people. And so it'll look at the person who uh, goes to all those different places and it'll say, okay, that person has a more convincing argument for being good. And
Mm-hmm.
so it'll kind of punish the player for having less convincing data because they play the same 5 people over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, that's basically like the big thing. And yeah, What else? What else is there to talk about on that topic?
There's and something I kind of want to ask is like, how would this end up looking at like people who come from a different region and now they compete, like the big silliness that happened either last year or the year before. We had Apollo Kage come out and he
Hmm.
was here for Ichigo-con, and
Yeah,
he went
I
to
remember that.
enough locals, won all of them, was able to be ranked one in SoCal
Hmm.
for his like 2 weeks, that his 1 or 2 weeks that he was out here, because he came in and like swept everything. Or I because I think what was it, you need like six locals or whatever to qualify of a certain one, of a certain amount, and he was able to do that at every single one. I'm going to assume mostly because people knew Apollo Kage was going to be there. But shout out to Apollo
Yeah.
Kage, you're cool. Improve yourself today or whatever that he says. Like, how
Yeah.
does something like
Make sure
that?
you improve today.
There you go. Make sure you improve today.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
how does something like that like play into it? Because I feel like that's also a strange way to like figure out. Yes, they come in, but then all of a sudden you have that inquiry or that query that you had before of like, how likely is it for someone to come in out of nowhere and just sweep everything without having any prior data? I mean,
Well,
does he technically not have data, or his region almost carries over because he comes to SoCal for a little bit?
yeah, so it looks at all your data.
Hmm.
So like at that time when Apollo Kage came to SoCal, he was one of the best players in the world. If I'm not mistaken, he was uh I want to say that that season that he came, he got ranked like 20th in the world.
Hmm.
So he's like one of the best players in the world. So him kind of dominating every local was kind of expected
Yeah.
from a statistical perspective, because he had demonstrated at a whole bunch of tournaments like Double Down and basically just a bunch of good tournament placings that he is really good.
Hmm.
Um, and uh, and that he was one of the best players in the world at that time. And we didn't really have anyone that was that good.
Hmm.
So, or was rated that high, because they didn't have any like really top level performances.
Hmm.
So him coming through and kind of dominating everyone, uh, was kind of expected.
Hmm.
And so because of all the data he had from before he came to SoCal,
Hmm.
um, so that like he doesn't really get punished for that, because like it's clear that he's good
Yeah, yeah,
basically before he even came to SoCal.
yeah, certainly. Yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, like it's kind of weird to think too, like if we would have had ouch for another, like, I don't know, about another week or so, we might have probably ran into a similar thing, because he won Ichigo Con last year, he won it this year,
Hmm.
and had he stayed around for long enough, he probably would have swept all the locals as well. So I'm assuming
Yeah,
that's kind of like the same kind of deal, where it's like you have this
yeah, it's
massive
kind of
data
a split
set,
thing.
a massive data set, a nothing that wouldn't be considered a statistical anomaly because of all that precedent set into place, right?
Yeah,
At like
yeah. So
at a certain point, I'm pretty sure that doesn't really matter at all whether they did bad or good, right?
yeah, because if you have a lot of data that proves that you're at a certain level, um, one tournament or a few tournaments is not going to change that all that
Hmm.
much, um, because you have so much data that proves that you're at this level. And so, like, it'll change it, but um, not as much as if, let's say, it's like, you know, your 10th tournament ever or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Which I think that's only ever happened two times ever in all of our history: Aqualad going offline and Mango and Melee.
yeah, yeah.
Because like, the story was with Mango, he went to his first local and he won, like,
Mhm.
convincingly, through winner side, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. And the same thing for
Yeah.
Akala. He came in and just swept all the way through. Which
Yeah.
again,
Well,
we're probably never going to
Mango
see it like that ever again.
Mango is a different beast. I mean, there's a reason he has the record for both the youngest and oldest
Mm-hmm.
person to win a major. Um, but Akala, actually, you bring up a really interesting point about Japan. Because Japan's really interesting because of how big the Smashmate scene is there,
Mm-hmm.
in that like a lot of people in Japan don't go to locals until they're like decent, like until they're like pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, be because if they're not that good, like why would you go to a local and just to go O2 when you could go online and actually get good practice?
Mm-hmm.
Because they Smashmate is a really good system, and also they're physically really close together.
By
Um,
comparison.
Yeah, for example, like Osaka and Tokyo
Mm-hmm.
are the two biggest cities in Japan. They
Mm-hmm.
have half of the population
Whew.
in those two cities, and those two cities are 250 miles apart.
Yeah.
That's like LA to San Francisco.
Yeah. California is
So
almost as big as Japan.
so what happens is they just play online because it's like a relatively good experience, at least compared to the US.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and so the people you see at locals, that it might be their, you know, first or second tournament ever, but they're actually really good because because they've been practicing online, and you don't really see that in the US because primarily the way people get better is they play tournaments, or
Mm-hmm.
they go to locals, or they at least play online tournaments,
Mm-hmm.
instead of like the Japanese online ladder. And I know Smashmate also has like online tournaments that aren't on Start GG.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so that's how you kind of get this like effect with Akala, where it seems like he came out of nowhere, or same with Raru.
Yeah.
Um, these players that seemingly came out of nowhere, and actually the same thing with Hurt. But like for example, I remember Hurt like a year and a half ago. I was randomly like on Smashmate just to check it out, and I remember seeing that I was like, oh, there's this Snake player who's like top five on Smashmate, and his name's Hurt. And then he started going to tournaments, and then he got like second at Delta Five, um, beating Akala and Mia.
Yeah.
And I remember there were people like in the Smash Stats Discord, uh, like calling my algorithm crazy for
Mm-hmm.
ranking him like top 10 after that tournament.
Yeah.
And then what do you know? He
Lo and
becomes
behold.
like the fifth best player in the world or something like that.
Based on
Um,
actual rankings.
yeah, because he's like eh, his data is like shows that he's actually really good, and there's no way someone who just started playing could get those kinds of results.
Yeah. At that point, it's like, it is proving that, like, we say out of nowhere, but like what we really, I guess the terminology should really be closer to, it's not out of nowhere, it's shows up in person while
Yeah.
not having an established in-person record, right? So if we're going back to the, Akala coming in out of nowhere versus Mango coming in out of nowhere, the Mango version of this will probably never happen ever again. Whereas the Akala version of this can happen, and we can actually see it happen over and over again. And it's evident by someone like Sonics, someone like Sparko, like you said, Hurt, Aquila, a lot of these big names that were these giant Wi-Fi grinders that were able to go through and have something that they can grind and work towards so that they can go and prepare for offline. And
Mm.
like those kinds of things are going to happen. When's the next one going to happen? And are they going to be able to be at the same level? I don't know. Maybe that's what we want to say on that one. But as far as like literally showing up to the first local ever with like zero data. That ain't happening no more.
Yeah. Yeah, like someone who's like just showing up like that was just a mango thing. Like mango is just built different.
Yeah,
Like
very much so.
there has never been and never will be another player like Mango.
Which
Yeah.
catch the video of the same name if you can.
Yes, I have seen that video. The one by I think his name is Flame is Lucky. It's a really
Yeah.
good video.
Yep.
Um,
Yep, that guy. I had a question right here. Did the algo unrepresented that guy? Meaning, did the
oh,
algo
I
sort of
think
unrepresented
I think he was
hurt in
talking
that?
about Hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, I don't think so because in that instance, because uh, I think what I said was the algorithm put him at like top 10 after Delta 5, and then he became top 5 on the rankings. I was
Mm.
talking about he became top 10 after just that tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, as he added more data and like really good major results, he like became top 5 on the algorithm
Mm.
before the Lumi rank come out.
Yeah.
Lumi rank came out with him in top 5. So
Is
yeah.
he was he ranked 5 or 6 in the Lumi after, and that's where he ended up, right?
I
Somewhere in
think,
that.
yeah, something like that. Actually, he might have been. Hold on, actually, now I'm curious. I want to say he was um, number 5. Let's see, Lumi Rank 2024.1. He was um, number 4 actually.
Oh,
Um,
even higher.
that's right, because Spargo had a kind of terrible um, first half of the year,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
Spargo wasn't in the top 4 and Hurt was instead.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
But, you want to know some players that I think are gonna come out of nowhere in the future
Oh, let's
um,
hear.
one is I've been saying this for a while is Didi.
Mm,
Once he actually starts going to tournaments,
mm.
um,
Once
every
once he graduates from middle school and stops playing with
yeah,
fingerpaint.
right. Yeah, he is one of the most talented players I've ever seen. Um, and like I remember last SmashCon, I tweeted like because Didi that was Didi's first out of state tournament,
Hmm.
like outside of Georgia. I tweeted Didi's going to get top 8. He got knocked into losers before top 64.
Hmm.
Round 1 of top 64, he had to play Sonics,
Oh yeah,
and
I
he
remember
won
that. And he tied
with Pac-Man.
with
And
the
I
tag
was,
with the tag of up a stock.
yep. And
I
I remember
remember.
that. And it was a reverse 3-0, and I remember that because I was sitting behind him, behind like I was at SmashCon, and I was sitting behind Sonics and Didi. I got up early Sunday morning to watch their set. There was no one watching 80% of the time, but I was sat down
Yeah.
right behind them, like watching. And I watched it because I knew he had a good chance of beating him.
Hmm.
So once he actually like starts going to tournaments, that's who's going to be really good.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
let's see. Another one is Syrup.
Yep.
Like people I think underrate Syrup. Same kind of thing. In that he plays Steve.
But
um,
I
young
feel
Steve
like
player that
I
doesn't go to enough tournaments.
I think the problem with not the problem. I think people are willing to give Syrup more credit because he's been doing it, I
Yeah,
think, at this point for 3-ish years now, 4-ish years now. And he started when he was like 12 on the NES. And with that NES, he was still doing
he was good.
some work with that NES.
Hmm.
So they're willing to give him the credit on that one. And also Didi's
Yeah,
just a poster. He's a poster. So there ain't no way they're not going to support a poster like him.
yeah, yeah. I think Didi is probably my biggest pick for the next player who's gonna come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Um, Another one is maybe Alendis. The problem with Alendis is he uh, lives in Tijuana and
Yeah.
it's hard for him to come to US tournaments,
Yep.
but
That's
he is
just
a really, really good
difficulty.
player. I bet most people who are watching this don't know that he beat Spargo this season. Like
Yeah.
this season, he at a ranked event, a B tier, he beat Spargo.
Hmm.
Um, and most people probably don't know that.
Wasn't that last month? It was
Yeah, it was like
oh,
it was
Warlock
like
something,
PSY
right?
Showdown.
Oh, was that what it
Hold on,
was?
no. I want to say it was something Showdown. But that kind of goes back to your thing of like people don't really pay attention to uh like people only really pay attention to like the big events, right? Like Spargo winning Don't Park on the Grass
Yeah.
and
And the
you know
throne.
and the throne, yeah. PSK Showdown.
Okay.
Um, it was a B tier, and he beat Spargo in winners, and then Spargo came in through losers and won the tournament. But he did take a set off Spargo
I
in
think
the season that people think Spargo is number one.
I think like the other thing that like people like forget too is like there are a lot of people that do beat some of these extremely high level players that like they don't get the shine for it and they don't or they
Yeah.
just forget. Like I don't remember the name of the tournament, but it was Chag and Spargo in Grands, and the I don't think people remember that Chag ended up winning over Spargo from winner side because I don't think there was a reset on that one. And at this point, it's so long ago I don't even remember. But
Mhm.
part of the reason why it was so memorable was they didn't have the player cam. So when Chag wins, you see they turn on the cam. All of a sudden, he doesn't have a shirt on anymore, and he's popping off.
That is really funny. I just pulled it up. I think it's Alberto Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and he beat Spargo twice.
yeah. I was like, what
That
the
is really
heck?
funny.
I was like, wait a minute, what is this pop up? Turns out, like he said later on, it was really hot, man. I needed to take off my shirt for a second. And his body
That's
was
funny.
all red from how hot it was. They were overheating, and I'm like, oh, well, this is hilarious, like turn of events. And it was like it was in that time frame where before Chag wasn't able to enter the U.S. for traveling to places the United States doesn't like people like traveling to,
Mhm.
mainly Qatar and Cuba, but that's where I don't want to get into politics
Yeah.
on that one. Trust me, so mad. But never mind. Like that was during his time frame where again, Chag coming out of nowhere, despite the fact at that point he'd been in the scene for quite a few years, and
Hmm.
coming up with Spargo in that instance, like he was there during Smash 4. He was there at the first Evo. He was there, up until, finally the return to offline happens and some of these people are finally getting that chance and he's able to prove himself at the time the best Palutena player um like that was actively competing and he's
In
there with
2021, yeah.
yeah in 2021 era and it's like yo Chag is going to be the next coming he's going to be the next come up person top 10 in the world. I think he like peaked at like 22 or something like that but he was
Yeah, really
really
high.
high up there and during that time frame people also forget he did beat who a lot of people believed was the number one player in the world.
Yeah.
There's a thing that I had talked about with when I had my conversation with Mike from Granola Arcade. He said what was one of my what's one of my favorite esports or just sporting storylines of all time, and I said it's kind of weird and that Spargo has like this great record amongst everyone who's considered better than him, but he's never like the highest ranked person. And it's like, oh,
Mhm.
the facts versus the narrative is the greatest storyline, a clash of storylines of all esports. The facts versus the
Yep, the
narrative.
facts versus the narrative. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I really hope Spargo gets number one this season. I don't know if he will, but I
Mm,
really hope he does because it would be such a sick narrative because Spargo has been after number one
mm-hmm.
for like uh
3 years at this point, 4
3 years now.
years.
Yeah, 3 years. Because in 2021, when they had the PGR contenders list,
Mm-hmm.
there were like three number ones. It was MKLeo, Tweak, and Spargo.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think people considered MKLeo and Tweak ahead of him at that time. But
Mm-hmm.
then there was like I remember there was the controversy at like the first half of 2022 when uh some people thought like he should have been a bit ahead of MKLeo for that season.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember at main stage 2020, 21, oh, excuse me, main stage 2021, he beat MKLeo for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got spiked in that off like that grand finals that
Yeah. Like
like where
side
he
B.
was yep, that
Yeah.
side B where he like jump air dodge, lost his jump, and then had the side B and oh, that was so brutal.
That was
Game
so
five.
heartbreaking. That was such a heartbreaking sight. Oh my god.
And yeah, if he won that, he would have had like a better argument for number one. And then he kind of got robbed of it the next season, and then he's had kind of some trips along the way, but he's back at like being a contender for number one, and I just
Mm-hmm.
hope he gets it this season because he's had such a good season.
Yep.
Um,
And again, there's the idea of like what I said, like if you look at like what people considered like the four horsemen era, where it was Sonics, Mia, Akala, Spargo, it was
yeah,
guaranteed one of those four. And
yeah,
Spargo has, despite the fact not winning as much, he has the better record
against those four,
against
yeah,
those four, and especially over Akala, who I want to say in the last 7 times that they've met, Akala has only won once, and that was
yeah,
in Japan very recently. I want to say that was just
yeah.
barely last month or
I think
2 months ago,
it
or like
was
yeah, something along time, just super recently that he
yeah,
finally beat Spargo after 7, 8 sets or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Like, I was like, come on, man. How can I don't know.
Yeah,
When the
it
wins
is really
happen.
interesting how Spargo has like had such a consistent good record versus the top four, or I guess the other three in the top four. And then but it's just everyone outside that he's kind of tripped up against.
Hmm.
But now he finally has been consistent against people outside the top four, and for this Lumi rank season, he has a good shot at being number one because of that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people would want to like, at least the way I see it, it's if not for the story itself, it's for literally everything up until that point, right? Like,
Mhm.
did Spargo just have his Mango slump era, or was it he's just not in it? Is Spargo finally up to form? Is is he going to receive the title that everyone
Think
truly
knows he deserves.
sees that he deserves, right?
Yeah,
And that doesn't take away from Mia. That doesn't take away from Sonics. That doesn't take away from Akala.
yeah.
He's like the golden child right now of Ultimate, and he has definitely far surpassed in consistent positioning or placements and consistent wins over the old guard at this point of Ultimate, over Tweak, over Light, over MK Leo, whether it be just barely recently or the tides are starting to shift.
Hmm.
These more recent winnings do show that it's a very specific uh narrative almost of he's finally taking those steps to claim that title that a lot of people have been trying to give to him officially for the last 3 years, you
Hmm.
know?
And he's the only one out of those four who's been in the running for number one for the longest. As
Mm-hmm.
in, like in 2021, Spar or Sonics and Mia and Akla were nowhere near number one,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, even in and for the past, he's the only one that out of those four that has been gunning for that for the past 3 years, and he's finally has a chance to take it.
The highest chance this time around.
Yeah.
Personally, I think of that, the funniest version of that is Sonics gets number 2.
Yeah. King of number 2.
Oh my god. Oh, well, oh my god. Not finally will he break the curse. No, not like this. That's not what I meant. Of the number 2, right? And I think poetically that'll be the funniest thing. I don't think that's what's going to happen. That he'll get the number 2 rank. He'll probably be like 3 or 4 in that regard. But still,
Yeah.
For the divine comedy of him getting second place would be great.
It would be funny. Yeah.
Oh man, how many times do you feel like vindicated from some of your rankings, from the Schu Stats rankings, from your personal rankings, from also just your personal biases and belief? How many times have you been vindicated, or at least shown that, hey man, bro called it from a mile away, and we're just waiting for that to actually come to full fruition. We're just waiting for waiting for that to show up. Like, how many times have you seen yourself be vindicated by that? Because we're seeing it already. Everyone sees it for Didi, and everyone's expecting it, but you've been calling it for a little bit. Same thing for Syrup.
Yeah.
Like, and everyone's all saying for Alan Dis too.
I think a few times in the past that I have been is, I mean, the biggest one is Hurt, and yeah, I think the biggest one was Hurt. Another one that I remember in 2022, I thought that like Sonics was like top 10 if not top 5, and then he got like number 12 I think in the world. And I remember I was like, damn, he's gonna be there though. And I remember him tweeting like kind of the same thing of like, I I remember he was tweeting about being disappointed at number 12 in 2022, but he
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Well, I'm gonna be there. Like, I'm gonna be, you know, top 10 for sure next season, and like, maybe even higher." Another big one was Bloom Forever,
Mm.
because I remember he would only attend like English tournaments for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I remember seeing like he had a super high rating, and I had never heard of him. And then I looked into him, and it's like, dude, this guy is really like has like performances in his region that I've never seen before, and that I don't even think like uh some top 100 players could replicate.
Yeah.
And I was like, this dude, like I remember I have a friend who plays Bayonetta.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was telling him about Bloom Forever, and he's like, he's not going to be better than Lima. And then he went to uh, I forget where he went, but I want to say it was like France or something, and he did really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
want to say he beat Gluttony, and it was history from there. Actually, same thing with Tama Daifuku.
Mm.
To stay on the topic of Bayonetta, is I remember in the beginning of 2023. Actually, I remember the first time I learned about him was beginning of 2023. I went to Japan with AC, um, and AC actually played him in tournament and beat him.
Mm.
And I was like, I wonder how good of a win this is. And I looked him up, and he had like a really high rating. And I
Yeah.
was like, I bet he'll be good. And then people were like, kind of like clowning on me for in the very first iteration of my character top 100s, he was
Mm-hmm.
number one. Tama Pidaifuku was the number one Bayo, and
Yeah.
people were like, "It's so Japan biased. How is Tama Pidaifuku number one?" Like seriously,
Yeah.
people, that was like the one that had the biggest backlash of being Japan biased, because Tama Pidaifuku, they had never heard of Tama Pidaifuku, and he was number one.
Yeah.
And then in 2024, literally the next season he was I want to say top 10, right? He was number 8 in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a big one. It's funny how it's happened with two different Bayos. Um,
The weeb allegations. There you
but yeah, I
go.
remember, yeah, like people like kind of clowned on me for putting Tama P as the number one Bayo in late
Yeah.
2023. So that was one opportunity, or one instance where I felt vindicated.
It's like, hey man, y'all could say what you want, whatever, but yeah, those rankings kind of don't lie. Yeah. Damn,
Mhm.
that's crazy. No, next thing you know, it's gonna be like oh god, what's that one? Um I'm trying to remember the movie, the Eagle Eye, where they predict the crimes before they do it. You're gonna predict the top 10 before they arrive.
Yeah, actually, I mean, it's kind of what the algorithm like kind of does is
Yeah.
it's kind of because the whole point is it's built to try and predict how a bracket is gonna play out. Like that's kind of what seeding is
Yeah.
like who is expected to perform the best in the future. And
Hmm.
so if you extrapolate that out, like the algorithm is how people are expected to do in tournament in the future. So it's
Hmm.
kind of a look into how people might um, perform in the next season. Of course, people can go up and down in skill level, but on average, they'll stay at the where they are now.
Hmm.
And so it's funny how often it can predict how well people will do in future seasons.
That's awesome. You know what we need to do? We should do the have you ever heard of the or did you ever watch that show Street Outlaws?
No, I haven't. Tell me about it.
Street Outlaws is a I don't know if it's still on, but it's a show on Discovery. It was one of their top shows, and what they did is they followed around a bunch of street racers out of Oklahoma, OKC specifically, and they have a ranking system, but the way they do their ranking is based on callouts, so you have to make the list. So they have a top 10
Mm,
list, right? So the goal obviously is to be number 1 and then to defend yourself, and then you get the crown. So it's like, okay, you have your top 10, and then you have your two racers that are considered the gatekeepers, and then you have to challenge the gatekeepers to get a shot to call out the bottom person of top 10, right?
mm, mm,
So um one season they're like, hey man, we're literally seeing the same 8 races every night with very little change, and there's a new guy that we all know who's starting to get into it. Let's do something different. So they do every so often called the shake up, um, where they take uh, their top 10 perspectives or prospects, and they'll also throw in their um, the gatekeepers, and the first 10 they pull out is how they establish the list. And that's how they'll establish the list. It's like, but the thing about the list is you'll end up where you're supposed to be eventually.
yeah.
And the the funniest version was this guy goes by a farm truck because he has an old farm truck, and it's the biggest, heaviest vehicle that's there, but it accommodates the huge street slicks for it, so it works out in his favor. All that weight is able to push it back to the rear tires, despite the fact he has a huge motor up front.
Mhm.
Um, he loses, but because he was of the top of the 10 that they picked, he lost the race, and he starts the list at number 10, and he goes, can't believe it, lose the first race and end up still being in the top 10. So potentially, like, their number one guy for a long time was a guy named Chief. um he could have been the first one to be there, would have won, been ninth on the list, and he would have had to make his way all the way back up to the top and be number 1. But again, at that point, you consistently prove yourself over and over and over again, and you'll land where you're supposed to. The list will always
Yep.
tell you where you end up going to be, right? So I'm saying we got to do a list version.
Actually, there's someone who's doing something similar.
Ooh.
I don't know if he's still doing it. It's a guy from, I want to say Connecticut, somewhere in New England,
Mm-hmm.
and his name is Alex. He's a snake player.
Mm-hmm.
He's PR in New England, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he does what's called the Alex rank,
Mm-hmm.
where he he did this a few months ago, and he updated it every so often, and I don't know if he still updates it, but um he started with the top 10, just like he started with the New England PR, and if you beat someone uh on the ranking, on the top 10 ranking,
Mm-hmm.
you would take their spot.
Yep, exactly like the
And
list.
then and then this would continue, and uh I don't know, I wonder if I could find the most recent version. Let's see if I can find it with a quick cursory. Yeah, here you go. This was the most recent one from October. I'll put it in the chat.
Ooh.
Um, like it's kind of funny. Um, and this was right after Cola won some big tournament. Um, oh, it
Hey.
was it was after Luminosity Invitational, which Cola won. So
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
number one. Um,
Ooh, this looks like it's going to be pretty fun to look at. I'm going to link this
there-
also in the description after the fact. That's a
okay.
pretty funny looking thing.
Yeah, here's one from, let's see, hold on. Here's one from uh August, which is funny because this one looks a lot more like the actual rankings. Um, and it's because it was right after Supernova, which was kind of went mostly as expected.
Which is funny because you
You know,
see JDV at fourth in this in the Alex rank. Like no shade
yeah,
against him, but like you look at everyone
it's
there, it's like, ooh, that's
I
that.
think it's because like he ended up there before Supernova and then didn't go to Supernova, so he just kind of stayed there.
Yo, his spot was saved because he didn't show up.
Yep.
Damn,
But
that is some
anyway,
gaming of the system for.
but this is just kind of a funny ranking. Um, yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. So I think we need to do the list, and you got to do the call outs, and you got to put a wager on it as like, hey, I think I can hit the gatekeepers. It's like, well, it's gonna cost you $100. It's like, all right, and it's a best of 5, and boom, whether or not they move into the top 10, then they can ask for the top 10.
Mhm.
Woo, man, that'd
Yeah,
be
this is
hilarious to
kind of
see.
a this
We
is
gotta
kind of a funny thing.
let's
Yeah, hit up
let's
hit up hit up hit up Alex, tell him to update it.
we got to, all right, man. We got to do the list, and they have to challenge the top 10. They have to challenge the list. I love it. Oh my
Mhm.
god, that's gonna be hilarious. Let's see if we can get that situated. Um,
Yeah.
so there was a dude who would take the sleeves of. Oh yes, there was that guy. Oh my god, there's a guy. I forgot his name. And he wouldn't ask for money if you lost a race against him. He will ask for the sleeves of your shirt.
Like this, yeah.
Oh yeah, and
Oh, with scissors, he just
he would cut off the
that's funny.
sleeves. Like, there you go, I got the sleeves. So you better
That's
make sure
funny.
your car was finely tuned, or you didn't stall or jump the light when you weren't supposed to, because otherwise you'd lose your
Mhm.
sleeves. Come on, man, how embarrassing is that?
That's funny.
You know what? I feel like if Light was on that, he would do the same things. Like, come on, give me the sleeves.
He'd have his own sleeves on there too.
He would just do this, and
Yeah.
then boom, takes the sleeves off.
Yeah.
I need to see weird, silly side betting like that. We got to see more call outs like that on in Smash Brothers, because that'd be hilarious to
That's
see.
funny.
Oh man, it's good stuff. So I kind of wanted to ask something. We've really like stuck on the whole thing about stats and kind of like, how these things like can create a story very easily, and you
Mhm.
can use it to really push your stories. What I want to know though, and I don't really know if I really asked this, what was your story with competitive? Because that was a relatively short period of time before the
Mhm.
stats kind of took over. Um, what was that like? What was that first local like? And kind of when did you feel like as much as I love competing, I think I want to do this more, and I want this to be my contribution because uh part of the ethos of like what I'm trying to do is there's a lot of stories out there of people that aren't just the top players. There's people who are doing all
Mhm.
kinds of cool projects, artists,
Yeah.
modders or whatever that like they are just as important as, Spargo
Yeah, I
winning
agree.
Don't Park on the Grass, right? So where did you get to that point of like I think I'm done competing and I think this is how I want to contribute to the scene. Like, how did you get from
I
I'm
think
competing to I'm no longer competing?
I think, well, uh, I think 2022 was, like, by far my best year as a competitor, and I was really satisfied with it. Like, uh, I remember I beat, Monte at, like, a big at like a regional, and I beat Didi, who's like not the Steve, the he's
Yeah.
like the third best player in Australia at main stage, and I was like, I'm pretty satisfied with this, and I think if I want to go further, I'd really have to like almost dedicate my life to it, like
Hmm.
kind of like Spargo and Akala and Mia have in Sonics, um, and I was like, well. I don't know if I'd wanna do that, and I'm kinda better at the stats stuff than playing the game. Like, I'm alright at the game,
uh,
but I'm better at the stat stuff, and I think I could have a bigger impact. And also like, computer science and stats is, like, kinda what I wanna dedicate my life to,
hmm.
right? Like, it's, what I'm getting my master's in and
Yeah.
what I'm gonna go into as a career. So I'm more willing to dedicate a large chunk of time to this than to grinding and getting better at Smash. Um, and I, yeah, I think if I were to grind and get better at Smash, it's like I wouldn't have as big of an impact, and I would never be satisfied with where I am. Um, so yeah, that's kind of um, where where I how I decided to get more into stats stuff. Yeah.
So basically in 22 then, like when a little
Like
bit before,
twenty
yeah.
twenty three. Like
Okay. So
so
it's
like
like
after the end of 2022, I was like, I kind of had like a revelation of like I want to, change my priorities more.
mhm.
Um yeah. Um and that like beginning of 2023, that's when I met my girlfriend. It's like I got to really think about how I want to spend like my time and
Yeah.
energy because they're basically priorities are starting to change, and so I really got to uh, think about what I actually want to prioritize. Um, yeah,
There it is, man. That's something that a lot of these people don't understand. It's like, man, but I want to grind every single day. It's like, yeah, we also have to do things. There's
yeah, I
important
have to
stuff that
do
has to.
things. Yeah,
Oh man.
and yeah, that's when I really started to like realize like every minute that I'm spending on something that's not like a priority of mine is kind of like a minute not well spent. Like I could have better spent um that time on like, hanging out with my girlfriend or doing something that was actually fulfilling or like that would
Mhm.
have like a big impact. So yeah.
And with the with the stats, right? There has been like, at least to my knowledge, that and there has been this like, I want to say blow up in like what your presence was, but like you were immediately able to see, especially when your first handful of posts went super viral. You were able to see is like, oh, there is a better way to contribute to the scene rather than just try to be the next top player from wherever whatever location. And like again,
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
there's another like sense of like the stats once again vindicating your decisions and your call outs.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
like here you
absolutely.
go.
It's funny, I kinda knew that, like, the, um, ideas I had, like, the results-based tier list and the as actually, especially the character rankings, like, I had that idea for a while, and I knew it would do well. Um, it just took a little time to, like, get just right where I could, felt good about releasing it.
Hmm.
Um, and Uh, but I didn't expect it to catch on so much.
Yeah.
Um, but that was pretty cool. And yeah, I mean the way I see it is like I think it's definitely a good way to enrich the scene.
Yeah.
Like, um, yeah, um,
One thing I do want to say like that is the way like I even knew who you were online, the fact like this kind of project exists, and like it's not it's not very often that a lot that someone can contribute to the scene in a way that's used so heavily in some instances that like people didn't realize was missing, right? People can point to the shoe stats and say, look at how this person can prove themselves as, the best of their character, or they can kind of see the fruition of the dedication of hard work that they're having in region because it doesn't just spotlight your top 100 people. It doesn't just spotlight, you know, the one particular region. It is put across everywhere. So it's a great start point to like
mhm,
find out about different areas, about different regions. Like there's a account on Twitter, that K Rule guy, I think is the at. He always looks at the K Rule, top 100 K rules, and he finds the people who are surprised that they're ranked so high, and so he can highlight the K Rule players, right? He can see like, oh my god, look, finally the K Rule rankings are out. Every month you're going to see that particular guy post about it real quick. Also, shouts to that
yeah,
guy. But like these are great platforms to have these kinds of high level discussion. And before we only had the one ranking that would come out every 6 months, every year to have
and it would
those
only highlight like 100 players,
exactly.
like total. It is actually really cool seeing like people, uh, like take it and like do really cool stuff with it, like the K Rule guy, because it's a kind of a unique thing in that like there's 83 characters, including random, and
Yeah.
for each of them, there's 100 players on the ranking. So that's, I mean, obviously some people are on both or multiple lists,
Hmm.
but that's around 8,000 players that are getting highlighted that otherwise, most of them probably wouldn't get the attention they deserve.
Hmm.
Um, and it's cool to like see people, take this and do different things with it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
I remember there was the conversation a while ago directly using shoe stats of, hey, we know there's a huge drop off between number one of this character representation versus the number two. Where
Mhm.
who has the biggest drop off? And they
I
literally
know. I
cited
remember.
cited you specifically
Yeah, I
for that one.
remember like the last time character top 100s would come out, every so often I'd check the my notifications, and I remember seeing a bunch of quote retweets of like oh, this character has this differential, and then like I remember the when the cloud one came out, Spargo tweeted like, "Oh, I think I have your answer," and it's like him having like 10 times the rating of the next best cloud.
Yeah. I think it was statistically it was between it was the cloud drop off versus uh who was it? It was
Who was the
who's
second?
I want to say it was the Steve rep, it was a Steve rep, wasn't it?
Really?
I
Hold
want to
on.
say because the overall difference wasn't like a massive, oh, this was a 10 times. I think it was still pretty big, but it was only like 6 times difference versus Spargo's 10 times difference.
Yeah, I think let me see if I can find a character with a big difference. Uh, Pikachu is definitely up there.
Yeah.
With Shiny Mark versus I think Esam. Um, who else is there? Uh, Wario. Wario is
Wario.
a big one.
Oh yeah.
Because also Crepe Soleil wasn't on the Wario one.
Oh, cuz
I don't think at least. Oh, Snake too was
oh
pretty big.
yep.
Um,
Yeah.
let's see. Diddy Kong was pretty big, and uh, yeah. But anyway, that was really interesting seeing those differences
Yeah.
um, in the first and second. Um, yeah, I actually have to go pretty soon. Um,
Oh, okay.
so I don't mean to cut you off, but I just
No,
want
totally
to
fine.
if you have like another question or a topic you want to touch on before I go, now's the time.
Well, if
Um,
we're gonna cut it off short, let's see if we can speed through this. The last thing that we
okay,
do,
sure.
but first, I want to say thanks for taking the time at all to do this. It was really cool. I again, I always want to try to highlight, stories of people that aren't always the stories that you're going to hear right away because 99% of the scene is not every single top player you see on day
Mhm.
3. So
Yeah.
thank you for taking some time out of your day. The last
Mhm.
thing that we do before we wrap everything up, it usually takes about 20-ish, 30-ish minutes. So hopefully that's not too much time, too much of your time. It's a rapid fire few questions. So
Okay.
it can be about anything, can be about nothing. Nothing's off of uh off the table unless you're being super out of pocket, which hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
So just whatever 10 questions that you can think of, um, you know, doesn't have to be related about this, doesn't have to really be about Smash. It can be if you wanted to, but we can go ahead and do that. If you want to cut it short, we can do 5 rapid fire questions and it'll be you ask 10 or you ask 5 and I'll ask 5 in that order.
Okay.
Heads or tails?
Well, who am I asking the question
To
to?
me.
To you?
Yeah,
Okay.
about whatever, right?
Okay.
So heads or tails first.
Well,
Uh,
how about you do the first rapid fire questions? Is that okay if I
yeah,
just
totally
nominate
fine.
you?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure, sure. All right. First, for we'll like I said, I don't know how quickly you really want to get out of here. We can reduce it to 5 if you want. You want to go ahead and just reduce it to 5, or do you want to go the whole 10?
Is it okay if we do five?
Yeah, yeah. We'll cut it down to
Okay.
5. All right.
Okay.
So the 5 questions I'm going to ask. Okay. Okay. First question. Let's make it a Smash equivalent. Um, do you think your ranking? That's not the way I want to ask it. Okay. If you had to use your ranking system for any other thing, the ranking algorithm for any other anything, what would you want to use it for to kind of explore stuff outside of Smash Brothers? Which rankings for
Uh,
what?
that's a great question. Outside of Smash Bros, I mean, probably like tennis. It's the highest profile
Yeah,
1v1 sport.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
maybe well, definitely like other fighting games.
Mm,
Um, in general, like, Rival, Street Fighter, all those.
yeah.
But I guess the biggest one I'd say is tennis, but I don't know. I haven't even dug into that. The first place I'd probably go outside Smash Bros is Rivals, but the biggest one I'd want to do if I had the opportunity to would be tennis.
Nice,
So,
nice. All
yeah.
right. All right. Okay, this is one of my favorite questions to use, and I get this from Goods from the Woods podcast, friends of the show, Goods from the Woods. Um, favorite thing from your childhood that isn't there anymore.
That isn't there anymore. Um, hmm, let me think.
Take the time that you need, man. That's why these questions are fun because you never know.
Um,
That's a hard one, huh?
maybe yeah, this is, I would say, like the kind of Wild West internet, um,
mm,
where it's just people making stuff for fun about things they enjoy. Um, Feels like a lot of the internet is so commodified nowadays,
mm-hmm,
um, which is can be good and bad in different ways.
mm-hmm,
Um, but I kind of miss just like watching YouTube videos of just like random things that people found interesting,
mm-hmm,
without them trying to, like, I don't know, game YouTube or like, actually, now that I'm thinking about this, I'm something that I miss is Club Penguin. Um,
mm,
I remember,
the
I mean, I'm probably
classic.
just being nostalgic. It's probably not as good
Yeah.
of a game as I remember, but I remember being nostalgic about that as a child. Yeah.
Yep. That's a good one.
Club
That is a good one.
so
Club Penguin.
Club Penguin and the Wild West, not uh kind of baby internet. Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. All right. Um. Well, I need to preface this one by asking: do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
I listen to a fair amount.
Okay. I need to
Not that
preface.
many, but
All right.
yeah.
Apparently they're community service for Club Penguin, so maybe want to look into that. So now that I asked my preface question, if you had to recommend three podcasts that represent you, whether the good, bad, and the ugly of you, um, from different versions of the game too. Ooh. Um, if you had to recommend three podcasts that could like give everyone the idea of who you are, what podcast would they be?
I'd say the first big podcast I got into was Hello Internet.
Okay.
Um, are you familiar with that one?
No.
Okay. Well, it's by CGP Grey and
Mm.
uh, Brady Heron, I think is his last name.
Mm-hmm.
Brady and CGP Grey. Anyway, Hello Internet. Um, and the only other one I can think of is uh, Deep Dive with Ali Abdal. Um, I don't know if I can think of three. But those are the two I'd say.
Those are the main two. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Number for second last question, let's go back to the Smash Brothers and FGC in general. I don't know if you could tell, I have a Gram controller right here.
Yeah, I saw that.
I have a Gram controller. Shout out to the folks at Gram. I love y'all. Our levellists, and also I have a granola leverless controller here.
Yeah.
But you also see my little GameCube controller here. Are leverless cheating, in your opinion?
No, actually, hold on. I'll be right back. Hold on.
Yep.
I'll be right back. I'm almost back.
For sure, man. For sure.
This
Oh,
is my leverless that I made with a Raspberry Pico and some keyboard switches that I made for Smash. And I love it. And I play Snake on it, and it's sick.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know anything about DIY.
Yeah. So, I absolutely don't think that they're cheating. Maybe in certain instances in Melee, but I think in Ultimate, I don't think they're cheating at all. Just because if they were cheating and they were really that overpowered, then everyone would use them.
Exactly. The curve is so
Yeah.
high. I think in the top 100 in Melee, I want to say it's only Pipsqueak.
Yeah, that might be true.
I think Pipsqueak is the only one, and I don't think there's any in the top 100 for Ultimate.
You might be right about that. Esam. Well, Esam's not top 100 anymore. He was top 100 at one point and uses a leverless now.
He uses I know he uses Smashbox.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't
when he got into it, he wasn't rank 100 anymore. So here we go. There you go. And
so maybe it's the opposite of cheating. Maybe it makes you worse. No, I'm just kidding. Another really good box player is obviously Nito, but he was never top 100. Sean, the Captain Falcon player. But no, I don't think it's cheating. I think it's just another excuse for
people to complain.
It's just another John. Yeah, exactly.
Come on, man. Whatever happened to no Johns? All right. Final question. I'm not asking you to leak anything, but what is one project that you're looking forward to, or what's a project that you want to do that you haven't been working on already?
Yeah, sure. I'll give two of them. One that I'm just finished. Well, I finished the stats for, but I'm still working on the actual post for is an update to the results-based tier list.
Oh.
Yeah. Because I released that like a year and a half ago at this point. And then another one is I want to make this is one that I haven't really started on, but I want to do in the future, is make an AI that predicts the odds of a Smash match based on a whole bunch of different factors. Like obviously one factor is like how good they are, but like the matchup, like the character matchup, their set history, like even how good the players play out of region and what region they're playing in, and how consistent the two players are and how good each player is against the other's character, stuff like that.
Like some of those stats we did see like on Throne of like, oh, how good is this player versus this character and other representations against them and stuff like that. and
Yeah,
it would
and
take that
basically
into account.
basically make an AI that takes all that information into account and predicts the most accurate possible odds of a smash match.
Hmm.
I think that would be cool and has a lot of fun applications to it. Like for example, modeling um, the odds of someone winning a tournament. As in,
Mm.
like, if I have the seeding and I know the odds of every person versus every other person, I can figure out the odds of someone winning a tournament or someone uh, making top eight given a certain seeding.
Ooh, yo, that'd be crazy.
So
You'll make illegal side bets so much more lucrative.
yeah, maybe I'll put the odds on my Patreon and you can
Hey,
bet on your side bets.
subscribe to the Patreon. Which I gotta find the link for that, and I'll throw that in there in the description
It's
again for later.
it's patreon.com/SchuStats.
All right,
Shameless plug.
there you go.
All, all my stuff on all the platforms is SchuStats,
All right.
except for Discord.
Don't, if you don't want people to know that one, don't worry about it. All right. And that was my very last question because I said the box and then projects. All right, there you go. 5 questions. All right, sir, your turn. Ask any 5 questions
All right.
whatsoever.
All right. I guess one is who or what is the most interesting interview you've had so far?
Ooh, man, that one's tough because there's a lot of them are just they're all super great. I know my most watched one was the folks from Graham. I know that's my most watched one. Momo's was really dope. So was Azura's. Um, I think I have a soft spot for my conversations with Oates from Major Zine. Um, Shout outs to him. I heard he's living in Seattle now. I heard he's living up there. Hope he has a good time. I think he went 3-2 at Don't Park. So yeah, I think I have a soft spot for my Oates ones. Yeah, it's kind of tough. Jerry's was also really fun. If I want to go within the last 5 or 6, it's probably a tie between Graham, Granola, just because of the types of conversation. Because like those are the first time I had controller people, not people who were directly involved with, the scene. It was mostly commentators at that point who had conversations with, which was pretty cool to hear their stories of, I want to bring something that isn't just being a player to the game, isn't directly on screen for most people. Controller makers, that's crazy. If it wasn't for Graham, I literally wouldn't have my controller because I 3D printed the frame that it came with, the buttons, or not the buttons, the keycaps. The top panel on there is one that my fiance had cut out for me with her laser cutter. So probably between them, that's probably my most favorite of the recent ones, just because of like, that's one of the first ones of like, it's not directly tied to what you would see on screen.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Um, and then actually, this is a good question. Is so you mentioned you made parts of that controller and you had your DIY controller, your
Yeah.
cardboard controller. What is the first or how long have you been making controllers? Like, what was the first controller you made?
Oh, it was literally those cardboard box ones that I showed you.
Oh,
Those are
and
the
how
first
long
ones
ago
I
did you
made.
make that?
It's coming on a year now. It's coming on a year that I've made them. Like, I don't use them as much as I thought I was going to,
Mhm.
just because I don't have the general amount of time to put into them the way I want to. And sometimes when I want to like hit up quick play or whatever, or hit up Elite Smash, granola. The granola interview convinced me to get a controller. That's cool. And it was his box one. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it's crazy. That convinced I forgot that what happened to what he said. But I have the two cardboard box ones. I have my granola. I don't use them as much as I want to because there is just like a really big learning curve to it, and sometimes I just want to hop on and play. But I do love them. Like for Tekken, I use my granola. I'm trying to play Terry and Kazuya on my gram, and that it just feels really good and natural for them specifically. That's just how it is with like the fighting game characters, right? It's very it's very conducive to that style of play. I'm planning on something that I leaked in the Gram Discord, and they know what I'm trying to do. And if you listen to that interview, you have an idea of what I have going together. So I'm not gonna say anything further than that.
Okay.
So yeah, basically, I've only messed with these for the past year. My brother actually got me the Pro GCC Board 3, which is what this Pro controller is. I'm gonna get a different shell for it so I can have the gates on there, because not having them messes me up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Honestly, the gates are nice.
Yeah.
And let's see, what's
Question
another
number
good question?
3.
What is your favorite podcast? Since you asked me about podcasts, what's your
Oh,
favorite podcast?
my
Or
favorite
what's
podcast.
one of your favorite podcasts?
Ooh,
If you can't nail it down to one.
if I had to narrow it down to one,
No, if you can't nail it down to one, what is one of
oh
or a
god,
few of?
I think my top favorite podcasts are definitely Goods from the Woods, which I was just on recently, and I made the illusion that this was going to happen, so it came to fruition. So definitely Goods from the Woods. This is Rad, which is a podcast I've listened to for a very long time, where it's just basically, hey, if you like a cool thing, let's talk about it for a long time. Which I was on many years ago at this point. And probably Ferand with Hassan, Will, Cutie Cinderella, and Austin Show. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah. So I think those are my top ones.
Cool. Yeah. I think
Question number
that's
4.
three questions now, so 4 questions. Um, let's see. What's the best argument in uh against box controllers that you've heard? Because you asked me what do I think box controllers are cheating. What's the best argument you've heard for box controllers being cheating?
I haven't heard anything convincing, to be honest with you. Like,
That is the
I
most Giga Chat answer ever.
I haven't heard anything that's convinced me. Right? Like, it's like they're cheating. I don't know. Sounds like a skill issue. If it's cheating, you do it. Let's see you do it. Right? Someone like Leffen, who picked up a frame 1, and he's
Yeah.
like, he has the tech skill already memorized, and also he plays traditional fighting games anyway. Like,
Yeah,
of course he's going to be able to pick it up relatively easy. Like,
that's funny.
you look at fighting games, you look at traditional fighting games, the only winners have been pad controllers and stick controllers. Leverless has not
Yeah.
cracked a top 6 that I'm aware of. Right? One of the most well-known leverless players is like Daigo, and he gets like maybe top 16 right now. But
Yeah.
doesn't mean he won't whip people's asses, right? But yeah, dude, skill issue. Shut up.
It's just a thing to latch on to. Yeah.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, it sounds like a skill issue, man. Like, Tokido, I guess, but like at the same time, how many more people outside of him, really? Oh, he did win on Leverless. Whatever. Don't matter. Still not
Uh,
convincing to me.
and the last question I'll go with is which is your favorite character to play against in Smash
Play,
Ultimate?
play against. I guess
Or what's one of if you can't nail it down to one?
I guess it depends on what character I'm playing. So the characters I play are K. Rool, Min Min, Bowser, and I'm picking up Game and Watch just to like mess with. Um, I don't know, man. I think because I'm not like, I do play for fun. I don't hate any character, man. Like
You
if you,
just like them
I
all.
hate this character, bro. I don't know what to tell you, man. There's
Just get better.
just get good or have a better mentality. There's this green
Yeah.
stuff outside that most people see all the time. It's called grass. Maybe you should like touch it sometime. Right, like there's people that there's characters that frustrate me, but I don't hate it. Like I'm
Yeah.
not gonna hate.
You just like all the playing against all the characters
I'll play them
equally.
all. I don't care. Like a Steve player, fuck it. Let me beat him. Let me see if I can beat him. Have I beat Steve players on Elite Smash? Sure. Am I ever gonna beat Rockman? Hell no.
Yeah. Skill issue at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
dude. At that point, end of the day, it's a mental skill issue. That's what that is.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
It
I
is.
don't care, man. It's all good. It's all fun. If you're not having fun, that's when you're having a different personal problem. Again,
Yeah, exactly.
the green stuff on the floor that people walk by all the time. It's called grass. Touch it.
Yeah. Go outside. Exactly.
Exactly. Breathe fresh air. Know the warmth of the sun. If
Yeah.
you have a problem about it.
Hmm.
So there we are, dude. We hit the 5 questions on both ends. We had an abridged version. We hit the 5 questions. Thank you again for taking the time out of your day. This is, believe it or not, this is some of the ones on our shorter end of these. I felt like we could. I mean, I personally could have gone for another hour, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think I could have too. I just I got a place I gotta be in about 20 minutes.
Oh shit! All right.
I gotta go there.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you go
Yeah.
for that. But before I actually truly let you go, um, give us all of your plugs. I know you already said them. Give us all your plugs, all the places that you want people to follow you. Any shout outs, any whatever you want to say. This is what I'm gonna give you this little bit of time to say whatever it is you need to as we close out.
Yeah, sure, I'll plug myself. I guess my biggest platform is Twitter, twitter.com/SchuStats, at SchuStats. Um, I'm working on some YouTube videos. I've got a pretty killer YouTube video. I guess I could drop a hint at it. It's about the SoCal versus NorCal crew
Ooh,
rivalry.
hell yeah,
And that'll come out soonish as time allows. That's youtube.com/at SchuStats. Um, yes, that's
yeah.
right, leaks.
We always get the
Um,
leaks
my
eventually.
my patreon.com/SchuStats if you want to see extended rankings if you didn't quite make it in the top 100 of your character. And I also do regional rankings for your region if you want a ranking for your region.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know, I think that's it. So yeah, but yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you,
It
man.
was nice
Thank you for
talking
being
with you,
here.
Jesse.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here,
Mhm.
man. And again, if you want to see all the crazy stat stuff, go ahead, follow Schu Stats everywhere. Go on Blue Sky too. Twitter's becoming a weird hellscape.
Yeah, I have been started Blue Sky also at SchuStats, SchuStats.bluesky.social.
Oh, you could
Yeah,
change that to your web domain.
I
Like
could actually.
change your
That's a good idea. I should probably do that.
change your handle to your web domain. There you go. Boom. Then you can make the branding there a little bit easier.
Yeah.
All right, man, dude. Thank you very much. I'm gonna let you go. You take care. Say goodbye, everyone. Say goodbye. Say your ways and say goodbye,
Take
man.
care.
Later,
Have a
man.
nice night.
You too, man. Take
Later.
care. Bye.
Bye.
And there we have it, gang. That was awesome. That was a cool conversation. I didn't think we were gonna. Kind of sad it went a little bit short, but man, that was cool stuff. That was cool stuff. We actually already have our next guest lined up. It's been a while since we had a consecutive amount of these, and I got to start reaching out for some more people. It's been a bit, but one thing I want to say, I'm glad we were able to have this conversation. It was really cool that we were able to make it to the point that we did. Kind of sad we couldn't go for a little bit longer. I don't know. Maybe I'll reach out and we can do part 2. I'm not sure. But we already have our next guest lined up. Expect to see that soon, and expect to hear some real wackiness from what I can tell. Thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for participating in chat. It has been awesome. It has been awesome. Thank you very much. We'll be seeing you again relatively soon. And my hope is we'll have a good time again next time. So we're going to leave you. Take care. Have a good time. And yeah. We'll see y'all on the next one. Peace. Bye, everybody. Here's some fun outro music. Ooh. And it's going to be next month, in case you were wondering. Look out for December. Later.